Hey guys, welcome back to the Friday vlog where we discuss activity that goes on here with the BuzWeaver channel. That includes things like current events, headlines that are in the news, technology, social media, and items of interest that come up during the week that allow us to have a little bit of a dialogue. If this is your first time here, I'd like to welcome you here. And if you are a frequent visitor, I would encourage you guys to click on that watermark down there in the bottom right-hand corner to subscribe and click on that notification bell so you guys will know when the next Friday vlog is available, as well as additional content that's here on the channel. Your participation, guys, is always appreciated. In gaming news this week, the Civilization 6 Gathering Storm as Christina of Sweden has wrapped up. There are a few more episodes that I will be releasing, but nonetheless, if you haven't already, I will leave a link up here to the first, or to the playlist itself, or to the first video, so you guys can watch the series at your leisure. But nonetheless, the series has concluded. I've been very happy with the gameplay. It's been very exciting. I'm going to be kind of playing on my own now, off camera, to kind of get a better feel for all the new mechanics and additions that have been added to the expansion. But nonetheless, guys, you can check that out in the top right-hand corner. Assault milkshakes are on the rise in the UK. How's that for a headline? How's that for a hyperbolic statement being made? But last week and this weekend, we saw individuals such as Tommy Robinson, Carl Benjamin, and even Nigel Farage having milkshakes thrown on them. Now, in the bigger picture, of course, it is just a milkshake for the general populace when they interpret and see this activity. But if you're within the social community and or the political community, you know that this really is when it has intent behind it, when there is some sort of malice and angst behind it, it is a form of violence and could easily be interpreted that way within the court system. I know it can be here in the United States, because even, for example, when we talked about Candace Owens a few months back, when her and a colleague were attacked in Philadelphia, we would say that she was surrounded by Antifa in Philadelphia and she had water thrown on her, which I don't know whether water being thrown on you in Philadelphia is considered assault, but of course it can be a form of assault. But nonetheless, we see this happening in the UK, and things kind of escalated a little bit more this weekend because, as I understand it, was either Scotland Yard or authorities within Edinburgh had suggested to McDonald's to pause the sale of milkshakes, of course, to reduce this particular type of event that's becoming a pattern. But they didn't request it for the purposes of just keeping milkshakes from being hurled. It is because it is a escalation from this point. It starts with milkshakes, then it becomes water, as we discussed earlier, then it becomes water bottles then turn into rocks turn into bricks, and all sorts of other things can be used. And we've seen, for example, in Berkeley, where a bike lock was used to assault someone. And then we've seen where individuals, I can't remember which state it was in, but there was an event going on where Antifa actually attacked an elderly couple for simply having an American flag. So the escalation is there. I would say there's probably a little bit more of an escalation here, maybe in the States at some of these particular rallies. But we did see this weekend when Tommy Robinson was campaigning that a group of individuals whom we have mentioned here before of a particular religion, of course they don't represent everyone within that religion, but nonetheless they had gone to a community where Tommy was and were actually throwing bricks. And Tommy had then instructed the crowd and the people to be aware of this, as well as to, if anyone that had children, they needed to be, perhaps to go back home, or there was a van that was provided for apparently some people there, and they kind of rushed the children into the van to protect them. So you see, we can entertain ourselves and we can get a good chuckle out of a milkshake being thrown, but it's more than that. As a matter of fact, after the authorities had told McDonald's about this incident, Burger King saw it and kind of took advantage of it. Now, it could be, it could be just a business move on the part of Burger King, but they should have at least taken the time, energy, and effort to look into the bigger picture. And of course, they put out a statement, which I'll put here, appearing here on the screen, as to, inviting people to purchase milkshakes. Of course, it was perceived as a veiled threat, kind of, I guess, to certain groups of individuals who could clearly understand what was going on. Now, Burger King may have had different intentions and different thoughts, while others, at least within the political arena and social arena, knew exactly what Burger King was doing. So how it was interpreted is difficult to say, but nonetheless, the Edinburgh authorities and or the authorities in Scotland did tell Burger King to address this, and Burger King did. Below on that shot there, it does show that Burger King did come out and say that, of course, they did not advocate for violence, but it doesn't suggest that they don't advocate for the purchases of milkshakes to carry out violence. So there's all sorts of interpretation, all sorts of semantics and things that go on. But I wanted to bring this up because we've already seen a rise of this type of activity in the United States. Now, I've attended rallies myself. As a matter of fact, I go back and forth with YouTube over some of the Second Amendment rallies that I've covered because, well, it's the Second Amendment right here in the United States. We cover these rallies, tons of other rallies, tons of other demonstrations, tons of other protests happen. But here in the States, those types of things can escalate. Not a lot of them. Many that I've attended have not escalated into any kind of violence. Some words being hurled, some people having discussions, some people having debates, perhaps. But when it comes to organizations like Antifa, or with the group of individuals, as we mentioned earlier at Tommy Robinson, these individuals are determined to create violence. And they still have a voice, and they still have a platform on social media. So they're still able to organize. They're still able to get these groups of people together. Now, again, we've talked about this before. These groups are kind of small, but they organize and they work together and they foment this type of activity that may lead some of the individual spectators and others around to maybe engage in a little bit of it just for reasons that some people may not even understand why they're participating in some rock throwing or other activity. But nonetheless, I did want to bring that up to you guys. I will leave links down in the published section below for you guys to check out all the particular details. Season 8 of Game of Thrones has concluded, which also ends the series of the fantasy books by R.R. Martin. Now, I've never personally read R.R. Martin, but I know friends that have, and I think probably part of the reason why I didn't get into the books is because he went years before he wrote the next book. Now, if you do follow the show, it starts with season 1 and at least by the book all the way up to about season 6. And then after that, the writers, producers, and directors, of course, kind of take their own narrative and direction with it. And it's hard to say if fans were upset by the way the show ended because it didn't have the same kind of R.R. Martin flair to it. But nonetheless, as I understand it, and I could be wrong, not being the biggest R.R. Martin fan, not that I have anything against R.R. Martin, but as I understand it, he will complete that series of books, which means that the ending to the particular story of the particular groups and characters within the story, within the fantasy story, we could see something, have a different outcome. Now, of course, there was this huge petition to the producers to rewrite or reshoot it. But then at the same time, it reminds me of Lost. If you guys ever watched the show Lost, boy, that ending was absolutely terrible. It has got to be the worst ending of any show I've ever seen. And I would have loved to have gone back and revisited that series, but the way it ended, it just completely eliminates my enthusiasm entirely of even revisiting that series at all. But nonetheless, Game of Thrones certainly ended the way I would have anticipated it, because throughout the whole entire storyline, of course, there's never really that sense of completion. There's never that sense of permanence. There's always something going on. Groups of individuals aren't always going to be entirely happy. They're not always going to be entirely with what they have. And of course, it's a constant struggle of power among characters trying to find their positions within the world and always trying to pursue that Iron Throne. But nonetheless, guys, I will leave links down in the published section below. If you guys want to start watching the series, I'll certainly give you a link down there from the Amazon Prime link so you guys can check out the series. It's very well worth it. I think it's very well done. As a matter of fact, if you look behind me here, or as you see behind me, those are mostly all fantasy books. So I do enjoy the genre a great deal. So I did get into the story. I think it was very well done. I don't know whether or not we'd see another film based upon a book really come out, or a TV show come out, that would really be as gripping as Game of Thrones. I guess it could be done. I heard a lot about Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time perhaps being made into a series. And of course, we saw Terry Brooks' the Shannara Chronicles being put out by MTV. And I kind of enjoyed it. Of course, they took a huge amount of creative liberties to do that series, and of course, it only ended. It only went 2 seasons. But nonetheless, guys, I will put additional information down in the published section below for you. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up for this Friday vlog. I want to thank all of you guys for your likes, shares, and comments, as the summer months can be a little slower. So your participation is always appreciated. And guys, if you haven't already, be sure you click on that channel icon appearing right there on the screen to subscribe, along with that notification bell, so you guys will know when additional content is out here on the channel. And I will see you guys right there next Friday.